Llegaron los nuevos McCrispy Strips, listos para aventurarse en la mezcla de mayo ketchup, la barbecue que quedó en el fondo de la cajita, Hot Fudge Sundae y en la nueva Creamy Chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Los nuevos McCrispy Strips, ahora en McDonald's. Para pa pa pa.
Your weekend is not complete without the First Lady of New York Radio. It's the Joan Hamburg Show. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome to the Joan Hamburg Show, and hopefully you know we do this show every Sunday starting at 2 o'clock, and a great Sunday. I do hope you'll join us. One of Broadway's brightest stars is coming to visit, and a politician who's still in the midst of a very complicated race, Robert Zimmerman, is going to be among our guests, so I want you to be part of the party too. Sunday, 2 o'clock, the Joan Hamburg Show.
The First Lady of New York Radio.
This is Joan Eats.
One of my most frequent questions is there anything new in the theater district? Where can I eat? You may know this one, the Mermaid Oyster Bar. You guys know that in Times Square? This is the largest location of this very popular seafood restaurant. And remember, the Heartland Brewery was right in Times Square. And now you're going to find the Mermaid Inn. It's a venture between Danny Abrams and Cindy Smith. They own the Mermaid Inn and the a la carte restaurant group. It's good. And that group has Carmine's and Virgil's, so they really know how to do food. The Mermaid Oyster Bar is 15,000 square feet. It opened with 285 seats. Remaining seats are opening at a later date, so it's a big location for them. It's open from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Reservation 332-208-7713, available on Open Table. The restaurant is 127 West 43rd. The location is near everything, and they've got obviously a lot of seafood, really very tasty, and they have a happy hour from 4 to 5:30 only every day, low beer prices, low wine prices, low drinks. Their oysters are $1.50 an oyster, and they have a lot of happy hour food dishes. It's a good place to go after work. They have little mini New England clam chowders for $3.25. They have little neck clams, $1.50 each. Tacos, $3.50. Artichoke and spinach dip, $9. Calamari fried, $11. And grilled shrimp and avocado sliders, $8.50. Their dinner menu is very big, from lobster rolls to burgers to grilled fish. And it's really, really good. We could have a whole dinner with nice salmon and vegetables or chicken for $36. And that's not bad for that thing. And they have grilled lobster. Well, when we checked it out, it was $49. That's a bargain for that in New York. And they had a bronzino, head to tail, $39, and a ribeye steak. That was too expensive. It was over $80. But the fish was a good buy, and I think you're really going to love it. So you want to eat? Go to Joan's Eats and check out this very good deal in New York City, the Mermaid Oyster Bar, right in Midtown Manhattan.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg. Entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, everyone, to the Joan Hamburg Show. And my guest today, who's been receiving a lot of press, is Robert Zimmerman, who recently ran for the 3rd Congressional District, this seat, the Democratic seat, and he ran against George Santos. So, you know, it's a story every day. It's in the papers. And I wanted to hear from Robert Zimmerman's perspective what the heck was going on, and how did Santos, who apparently did not tell the truth about anything from his family, his religion, his work, his education, and actually had run 2 years ago, I think it was against Tom Suozzi, and he didn't deal with any of this. Like, it's sort of weird. How could that be? And Mr. Zimmerman has often talked about the importance of local media, and there was a Long Island paper, a small paper that ran a story about Santos and many of the lies. So I'm now going to introduce you to Robert Zimmerman and get his take on what's been going on. Welcome.
Thank you, Joan. It's good to be with you, and thank you for shedding light on such an important topic, because there are important lessons to learn from this so that the public and the country is not subjected to the kind of fraud and deceit and criminality that George Santos has already acknowledged. In fact, Peter King, former Congressman Peter King, who was a leader in the Congress on Homeland Security, he said, quote, "It would be risky to share any information, particularly about national security or Homeland Security, with George Santos, because there are still so many unanswered questions about where his money came from, how did he get his money, and the like, and his failure to be forthcoming answering those questions." So
right, and he got money fast, too.
Well, that's the point. Now, I think it's also worth noting the Republicans ran George Santos for Congress twice, in 2020 and 2022, and never did a background check on him, never checked him out. And in fact, there were news stories where Republican leadership knew about his as what they called exaggerations, and thought he was laughable. Tom Suozzi, in his defense, didn't have Santos wasn't a real campaign, and so Tom Suozzi didn't have the need to spend the money against him. When I ran, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee did do an 87-page report on George Santos, and what we could prove we used in the campaign, and we're very forward on it. For example, Santos tried to lie about his role in the insurrection movement, and we were able to expose not only did he support them, he actually wrote checks to get the insurrectionists out of jail, and after they assaulted police officers. He tried to lie about his abortion position, lied about his position on Social Security. He wanted to privatize it, which would end it as we know it. So we're able to document many of his lies about his policies. When it came to his biography, there were a lot of red flags, and we sounded the alarm as best we could. You know, we're a congressional campaign in Queens and Nassau County, and frankly, members of the media will tell you, members of the Times, as they said on their podcast, The Daily, there is not the investment by media in local coverage anymore as much as it used to be. Maggie Haberman made that point too. There's a tremendous dearth of attention to local news coverage. They don't. Let's face it. Many members of local media, they're cutting back. They don't have the money or the personnel to do the type of deep digging that has to be done. But there were local papers that did address this issue. The North Shore Leader on the North Shore of Long Island, Blank Slate Media raised many questions. Reporters at Newsday did too. So the real message here is that we have to invest and support our local media, our local newspapers. They're the front lines in defending our democracy. We should be buying subscriptions to those newspapers. We should be taking ads when we can in those papers, because it's very important to support local media. That's the real, if we don't want this situation, look, obviously you can imagine my frustration. Having been a candidate for Congress, I received every endorsement in the district from every major media source, every media source. I had Republicans like John LeBoutillier, the former Republican congressman for the area, and endorsed me as well, because we saw that Santos was a fraud. We knew there were issues, but of course we needed the reason candidates go to the media, the reason we take opposition research in the media, is we need their resources, their access, and their staffs to do the type of investigation that has to be done.
So what do you think will or can happen to him?
Well, it's an interesting question. I just want to make one other point. You know, when I became the nominee, I had 10 and a half weeks to the general election. And you can ask folks who run for Congress, local congressional campaigns, you know, they're in 10 and a half weeks to go. You've got to make a lot of fast decisions, and you have limited resources. That's why the press is so important, because of what they can do. Now, going forward, I think it's important to focus on the urgency for him to resign from office. And it's encouraging to see so many local Republicans and Democrats come together, disgusted by the lies he's admitted to, disgusted by the fraud he perpetrated, the crimes he acknowledged committing. both when he was in Brazil and here in New York. And the fact that that's all now coming out is very important. I give the Times enormous credit for their heroic work, their great research and article they put out. It was very, very great. And it led to other stories in the Times and elsewhere. That's very important. So,
but what about the other Republicans? It seems like most of them in the leadership
well, that's the problem.
haven't said anything against him.
That's why we have to have grassroots local pressure from Republicans and Democrats alike. First of all, calling on our local Republican officials, our local state legislators, our Republican members of Congress, calling for his removal from office and the need for a special election. They have responsibility here, especially because they ran him twice for office and never checked him out, never did any background checks on him. And so they should be joining us in calling for his removal. Likewise, it's also urgent that the Republican congressional leadership, in fact, finally address the crimes that he's admitted to, and the corruption that he's already acknowledged. And they should be, as well, speaking up. I think it's very revealing that Kevin McCarthy is so desperate to become Speaker of the House that he hasn't said one word about Santos for fear of losing his vote. The idea that George Santos could be pivotal in choosing the next Speaker is a danger to our country.
Without question.
And so that's why we should be calling upon the congressional leadership. But it begins first with all of your listeners. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican or not. Put the party labels aside and stand up for integrity. Stand up for protecting the integrity of our public officials. We can have our partisan differences, and that's healthy and good, and we have those debates. But we shouldn't have to we shouldn't have to question the integrity of our public officials. And when they violate that integrity, as George Santos did, lying about every aspect of his life, perpetrating a fraud on the voters, we should come together as one community, as one nation, and say this is not acceptable. He's violated public trust. And as Peter King said, he represents a national security risk.
Well, that's all for sure. But this guy is going to have to get a lawyer and good lawyers, and that's a fortune. And supposedly he's got no real funds to speak of. You think that there's a possibility they might convince him to make a deal and resign if they drop charges?
I can't speculate on that, but clearly he doesn't have he's got now investigations from the Department of Justice going on. He's got investigations from the New York State Attorney General, the Nassau District Attorney, who's a Republican, the Queens District Attorney, Melinda Katz, who's a Democrat. They've all come together. They've launched investigations into Santos. And we shouldn't have to wait a year to get answers to questions. George Santos should come forward tomorrow with documentation, which is what honest people do, and should explain how he had $700,000 to loan his own campaign. Where did it come from? He was initially reporting an income of $50,000. So where do you have $700,000 to loan his own campaign? And he claimed that his income jumped from $50,000 to a window of $3 million. He claimed his income jumped from $50,000 to between $3 million and $11 million. He claims he worked hard. Well, he has an obligation to show us who his clients were. He never disclosed that. Where did the money come from? We know, frankly, Joan, we all know he's bought. The question is, who's bought him?
Well, and no one's found it out yet.
Well, that's because he won't disclose it. He's hiding behind lawyers. He's doing what a fugitive from the law does. He's running away from the press. No one knows where he lives in the district anymore because he moved out of his home, or if he even lives in the district. He refuses to meet with constituents. He hasn't even opened his district office yet. He's got an office, but no one's there. So the point simply is, obviously this is a person of no shame. This is a pathological liar. But we have to keep the pressure on demanding accountability.
Is a runoff possible?
I'm sorry?
Is a runoff possible?
Well, what happens is if he vacates the seat, the governor then calls for a special election. That takes place roughly 90 days after the governor's call. And then the Democratic Party would pick their candidate, and the Republican Party would pick their candidate, and there'd be a special vote. So that's what would transpire. But we're a long way from there. Right now, we've got to keep our focus on building bipartisan support, demanding he be removed from office because he has shown just a complete disrespect for our democracy. He's shown disdain for the institution of the United States Congress, and he shows what most pathological liars do. He has no ability to tell the truth and no interest or integrity in terms of addressing his constituents' needs.
So if some of this happens and he steps down or they get rid of him or whatever goes on, would you be willing to do it again? Could you go through this after this awful outcome, after working hard and running such a good race?
Look, I've been honored by the number of folks, both nationally and locally, encouraging me to make this race again. It means a lot to me. But truthfully, my only focus is building a bipartisan coalition and making sure George Santos is removed from office. This is so much bigger than me. This is much bigger than Democrat and Republican politics. This is about standing up to protect the institutions of our democracy, standing up for having honest public officials in office, and standing up for accountability. That's why George Santos has got to resign and leave, because he's violated the public trust over the frauds he's committed and the crimes he's already acknowledged committing.
Right. And it doesn't seem like the public is willing to ignore this one.
I must say, it is inspiring. Out of this tragedy, and out of this disgraceful scandal, it is really uplifting to see people wake up to want to protect our democracy and restore trust in public life. And it begins with rallying together, putting the party labels aside, and demanding that he leave office or be forced out of office, holding Republican leadership accountable locally in Congress, in New York State, and in Washington. Because if they don't stand up to remove this criminal, this fraudster, if they don't stand up to remove him, they're accomplices to the crime. Because no one's doubting what a danger he represents to our democracy and what a danger he represents to our communities in our congressional district because of the fraud he represents.
And it's hard to believe that Santos could think that he could possibly get away with all this. It's like when I listen to him, right? What's he thinking? How stupid could he be?
I can't get into the mind of a sociopath or pathological liar. I can't figure that out. And that's not my concern. Right now, we know what we have to do, that is come together as one community. And certainly, I'm pleased to see so many people at the grassroots level come together. And I think it's also important to remember that one of the most important ways we can make sure we can stand up to future fraudsters out there is that we have strong local media, that we invest in our weekly newspapers, we buy subscriptions to our daily newspapers, we participate and make sure that, because they're the front lines in protecting our democracy. That's why we have to support local media.
All right. We wish you the best. Good luck.
Well,
Keep in touch so we know what's
great.
happening.
Always great to be with you. Thank you
Robert
so much, Joan.
Zimmerman.
Thanks for focusing on
You
it.
too. I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WAVC.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of can't-miss deals just in time for summer.
The denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg. Entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, everyone, to the Joan Hamburg Show. And this holiday, we have a special reason to celebrate. We have a fairly new show at the Stephen Sondheim and Juliet. It's got a wonderful star, Lorna Courtney, and it's a wonderful show. How often do you come out of theater these days and feel so good and celebrate and hum songs? I love that. And I said this is going to be, I hope, a great holiday for Lorna Courtney, who's a wonderful actress, entertainer. Congratulations to you. You must have been so excited when that show opened and everyone went crazy.
Yes, I was so excited and also very nervous at first when it opened, just the anticipation and who might be in the audience. But I calmed down and I realized that I'm here with every single person that's a part of this production and we're all in it together.
And it's a huge part, and you're really young and started getting big work almost immediately. But what happened here? Did an agent call you? Did you read about it? How did you first know that this was coming to town?
Right. So I was auditioning for another big show, Jagged Little Pill, and it was the same producer, Eva, and the same casting director, Stephen Copel Casting. I didn't end up getting Jagged Little Pill, the replacement for Frankie, but about a week and a half later, I got this script from the same casting director, and I read the script with my best friend and her mom, and we were laughing, and I was so touched and moved that I cried. It was so meaningful for me, and to be able to audition for Juliet. Everyone knows Romeo and Juliet, but we don't know this version. So bring this version to the stage, this 21st century version where Juliet has a voice, finds a second chance at life without Romeo, and really discovers her own. And of course, like you said, the show is so much fun. The choreography by Jen Weber is all hip hop, music, dance, like video choreography, and the songs for Max Martin on songs you hear on the radio. And it's just a joyous, joyous time. David West Reed's writing is smart and witty. People laugh. I see in the audience little kids from age 6 all the way up to very grown adults, and everyone has a wonderful time.
Right. And it's got, even though you're happy and laughing and you're humming, it's got issues that are really important. I mean, like, who am I? And I have to be me no matter what, and giving kids and everyone courage to go grab what is them and their lives. So it was really very special. So when you got it and you auditioned for it, did you know right away, or did they make you, like so many actors, go through every kind of thing that you had to go through?
I know, and I've been through it. Luckily, with this audition, I was the only person that they saw, at least that day, for I just had an initial in-person audition, and then a final callback a week later, and Betsy was also there for Anne Hathaway, and we were the only people that they were seeing for those roles. And then a couple of days later, we got the call from our agents. Well, actually, I was working at a gym at Equinox, and Stephen Copel, the casting director, happened to work out at that gym, and I see him like after my audition, and he just looks at me and he smiles and he's like, "Nope, I'm not going to tell you. I'll wait until your agent."
Oh, you're kidding! Now, were you a client of the gym, or you were an instructor?
I was working at the front desk.
Oh,
I was working at the
life
front
is funny, right? So.
Life is funny. And so then a few days after that, I had to wait, and my agent and manager called, and I took the phone, put it on speaker, took it into the office, and all of my peers, we were all just like screaming, jumping up and down with joy.
Well, who wouldn't jump up and down with joy? And that's really a thrill. When did you get out? You just graduated from college, like what, a year ago?
Well, that's funny you say that. I was supposed to graduate May of 2020. I actually graduated a year early in May of 2019. So I was supposed to graduate in the middle, or the beginning of the pandemic. But thankfully, I took all the courses I needed to take, the academic courses during the summers, and I got out early. I started auditioning for things. The day of my showcase, I got a call from Dear Evan Hansen that I got the standby for Alana and Zoe. And I was also auditioning for Maria at the time for West Side Story, and I ended up getting the Maria understudy and Rosalia in the ensemble. So I did that before the shutdown happened.
Right. And could you believe when they called you and offered you the lead of this? I mean, a major show with a major lead.
I know. It's like you know when you have a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When we wrote the script, my best friend's mom said, "Lorna, you have to get this." And she did it. And at first I felt pressured, but then I was like
scared, probably.
Actually, it makes sense. It just feels right. Like you just feel very in tune with the character and all of the songs, the storytelling. It really is a story that I'm still going through. So every day I'm learning and I'm growing. I'm learning more about myself and encouraging myself as a person too.
To go for it, right?
To go for it and to continue to not be afraid to put myself first, and to the sky's the limit. I think that's really what it's about.
Right, and if you can make yourself believe that, which you did, but I was interested in reading some of the background, because a lot of people who don't live in the city or the surrounding areas don't understand that it's not just, you can't just go to high school for a lot of kids. Like you wanted to go to an art and entertainment high school.
Right.
And like LaGuardia and schools like that, but you have to audition for those schools.
You do. You have to audition. And so prior to that, I did SciUp, which is a free summer arts institute program here in New York City, and I studied voice. I was also a part of the Gospel for Teens program with Vi Higginson.
Yeah, that's a great program.
Mm-hmm. And it prepared me. It prepared me for those auditions for high school. I actually auditioned for art too as a backup. Didn't get in, but I still love art.
Right. And now you can love it even more because you can view it in different ways. So people don't get the auditions are really hard, but even in grade school, did you know you had that voice and that gift, or it was just something that you've done since you were a kid?
From the time, at least, I was very, very shy as a kid, but from 5th grade onward, one of the choir director picked out my voice in the choir and started working with me individually. And in choir, I sung solos and things like that. So ever since then, I knew that I wanted to do music. And from 7th grade, I knew I had to go to LaGuardia High School for voice.
And you got in.
Yeah, and I got in, and we studied opera at LaGuardia. So
Did you know that opera, Lorna, was going to be it? I'm sure you thought, like I thought, that when I read that you got into LaGuardia, that's a lot of song and a lot of dance and a lot of, what we think, but you said it was opera.
I know, it was opera. So, which was surprising to me too, going into it. I knew nothing about opera, but I'm really glad I had that classical foundation for training. And by the end, because I was introduced to musical theater through my gospel choir initially, I performed with Mama I Want to Sing my sophomore year, and we toured in Japan for a month.
Wow.
And yeah, and so it piqued my interest doing musical theater and seeing how engaged the audiences were and how they really enjoyed it. And then my junior year, I got to play Nina in the Heights, and my senior year, I was Belle in Beauty and the Beast. And that's how I knew that musical theater, I felt my voice fit in, not necessarily fit in better, but there's more variety in the voice with musical theater, I felt.
Right.
So, and also one of the people whom I look up to the most, Audra McDonald, she also came from a classical background, and she does it all. So
yes, she does it all. I remember when she came out of school and I had her as a guest. I forget what she had gotten some part, and she was just out of school. And she really did do it all. I'm talking to Lorna Courtney, who's starring in & Juliet, and a big success in New York. Do you think LaGuardia changed the course of what has happened to you?
Definitely. I find that, and I get emotional when I talk about this, because where I'm from, in South Ozone Park, Queens, like
right.
Education, where you go to, it really does change, and like the course of your destiny is sort of like aligned with where you go to school. And so for us at my school, which happened to be a K through 8 school, there was 3 of us that got into LaGuardia High School, 2 for voice, one of whom I'm still best friends with to this day. And it was sort of like an escape, and we got to go to Manhattan to go to
big
school.
time.
It took us an hour and a half to get to school every day, and I had to take a bus and 3 trains, but I got there. And there were some people that had to take a boat because they lived in Staten Island, you know. But
yes.
it changed everything. It was unlike any other high school experience, and it was surrounded by people who loved the arts. This is what they wanted to do. And so we would make music in the hallways. We would be a part of the school musicals, and people were so talented. And I'm still friends with people who I went to high school with to this day. And I see them, and we're in the same shows together. I was with Deron Jones in West Side Story, and we were in the same graduating class, and also in The Heights and Beauty and the Beast together.
Wow.
Yeah, it really, I don't know where I would be or what I would be doing if I didn't go to LaGuardia, if that makes sense.
Well, you were unusual because you knew early on what your path was going to be, or you were going to try to follow that path from LaGuardia, and that made a big difference. And because you went there, you did things you might not have done, like understand music, really read music, and a lot of things that were not part of a school's curriculum.
And it makes the dream more of a reality, because a lot of people from New York, and even where I'm from in Queens, they might have a love for the arts, but because of where they're from or where their parents are from, they don't see that can become, something that it can be, you can make a living from it. So going to LaGuardia, it turned that into reality, because you really are. It's a pre-conservatory. So you're studying that art form very seriously. And we had class from 8 o'clock to 4:09. 4:50.
A lot.
Yes. We had our regular academic courses, and we had 4 classes within our major every day.
So what made you go to college, or did you take time off after you got out of high school? What was that trip like?
I auditioned for many different musical theater programs because I had no clue what, they were looking for. Exactly. And I got into everyone except Carnegie, and the ones that I decided that were the ones that I got offered the full financial aid for was for NYU, Baldwin Wallace, and the University of Michigan. And I chose Michigan because I wanted to have a different experience. I'm already from New York City.
Right.
I wanted to, and as an actor, it's good for you to know like what life is like outside.
Right. It isn't all New York and Queens. It's the Midwest.
Exactly.
It's football games on the weekend.
That was definitely like culture shock for me. I was like, whoa, this is a college town. And
it is.
Was such a town to me because people knew your name at the shops that you went to on the regular. It was a really, really, and it felt so warm and inviting, that program. There was only 23 of us in our graduating class. So we really got.
It's really small.
right, individual attention that we needed. The teachers were all amazing and so supportive. I also have family there. I have an aunt and uncle that live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So that's why my mom let me go.
Right. No, because it's far for, a mom from this area. That's like the end of the world in a way. Michigan is so far. But it isn't, but it's just their perception.
I know.
So Michigan was good for you. They had a good program? Yes,
an excellent program and a nurturing environment, one that wasn't, because I knew that I wouldn't do well in a highly competitive learning environment. So because being from New York, everything is already so fast paced. I wanted somewhere where I could feel safe and be able to learn and grow from that environment. But it's still, of course, with anything, you have to audition for the school's musicals and you have to, so there still is a competitive aspect, but everyone in my class was so nice, so warm. And we still have a group chat on Facebook that we all talk to each other.
Which is good. And they all wanted what you want or understood it. So you could feel at home.
Yeah. Two of our other, of the other graduates from my class are on in a show on Broadway, Kimberly Akimbo, with me. Us
that's
Michigan
exciting.
Folks, we're really working.
No, which is a great gift in this crazy business. So after school, what did you do, Lorna? Did you settle in New York City and the auditioning was the serious part of life?
Mm-hmm. So during our spring break, most people of my senior year, most people would go on vacation.
Right.
But I went home and I started auditioning for things. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to, put my name on the non-equity list when we had those person auditions, which I believe are coming back now. And soon more and more casting directors saw me. Then they started reaching out to me and sending me auditions. And I told them, I have to go back to Michigan to continue, to finish school. And then I just sent in self-tapes. I rented out a camera from our school's library and paid a student musician to accompany me. And I sent in self-tapes. And one of them landed. That was Dear Evan Hansen. I got the call of my showcase.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then you got the part.
And I got the part. It has been such a blessing, but I know that everything I do, I constantly work on myself and my abilities. And even now, when things calm down, I'll take an on-camera class or an acting class or, Yeah.
No, that's where a lot of your contacts come through too. From those classes and those teachers that are often called if they know someone. So it's really a great thing. And everything that happened, like you say in one interview I read, that when it started and you even were applying to LaGuardia, you didn't want to audition for drama because you felt you couldn't do it. You were scared. Maybe it was too much for you. So that's why you went for voice.
Right. I've really grown a lot in my confidence. I will say that, but it still is a work in process. So I came from being a really, really shy, really reserved person. And now I am a woman who has grown into her own.
And who's a leading lady on Broadway.
And who is a leading lady which is amazing, and to say at the age of 24, it's such a blessing, and I'm so honored, and what a show to be a part of too.
Yeah, unbelievable. And it took Broadway by storm. It was just what we all needed. after the miserable pandemic and all the depressing things. Even New York City sort of lost its charm for a while, and it's back.
It's back. We're here. We're at the Sondheim Theater, 8 shows a week.
There you go. Are you, do you remember opening night? Did you have the anxiety? Your family was there, your friends?
I did. I had anxiety, which was so weird and strange because we did it in Toronto for 2.5 months before coming to New York. And then, we had shows before opening night. We had previews, but there's just something about opening night. Then at the party, when the reviews came out,
you were gone crazy.
Yeah, I saw what Jesse said.
Jesse Green from the Times.
Right. Lorna's Blow You Away performance, and I was like, it was such a sigh of relief. I was like, oh, that made my night. I can relax.
Now you could go eat all the hors d'oeuvres and breathe. No, because it's a thrill, and you're working to packed houses too in a Broadway that has been shaky since the pandemic.
And it's I looked out at the audience Tuesday, which I didn't expect there to be a full house, and it was full. And I felt just so grateful because I know so many shows right now are
struggling.
Exactly. And I have friends in those shows. So.
All right. So this is a really happy, exciting time. Does your family do a big holiday now?
Yes. So luckily, I have Christmas Day off.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, I'm going to go up to stay. My mom and dad moved to Connecticut with my sister. So I'm going to go up to Connecticut with them, and I'm at my best friends, and we're celebrating Hanukkah now. So
perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Is your sister, does she have the voice?
She does. She does have the voice, and I'm hoping one day that, because she's my younger sister and she didn't want to follow into, Lorna's footsteps, I really hope that she uses her gift too, because she's a coloratura. In fact, she can hit notes like you've never heard before.
Really? Who sings? Does your mom or relatives have that voice?
My mom has a really nice voice, and my dad too, and he plays the guitar, but they're not. Yeah, but they met in New York Military Academy in upstate New York, and they were both in choir together. So
there it is. Well, we're so happy for you. This is going to be a great new year. Congratulations. And for all of you who haven't seen it yet, you are in for a big treat. And Juliet playing at the Stephen Sondheim Theater. Have a wonderful holiday, a great new year, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Take care, Lorna.
Take care. Happy holidays, and thank you so much, Joan.
A pleasure, honey. I really enjoyed it. It made me happy, and that's one of the gifts of theater, so go take advantage.
Yay!
Lorna Courtney, okay. All the best to you and your family.
Likewise.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg, entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
The First Lady of New York Radio.
This is Ask Joan.
I no longer make New Year's resolutions. It's, for me, a waste of time because I make them, I feel really good, and then it isn't even a half hour later, they're gone. However, the top resolution is, losing weight from almost everyone. And U.S. News and World Reports every January releases a list of the best diets. And every year I report them to you. And every year most of us vow we're going to do better in terms of our food, our diet, what can I tell you? Anyway, they divided into categories. The best diets, the best fast diets, the best diets that are easy to follow. And the winners this year were almost the same winners that they are every year. The Mediterranean diet, you know that one, and the DASH diet. And there's another one that's strong called the flexitarian diet. That's new, right? For the 6th year, the Mediterranean diet is number 1. Fruit, vegetables, olive oil, fish. And it's on quality rather than a single food group or a nutrient. And it took the best for healthy eating, bone and joint health, family-friendly, plant-based, and it took 2nd place in heart-healthy diets and diabetes diets. The DASH diet, remember that came out a while ago? That was for fighting blood pressure, high blood pressure, and the ability to control or prevent diabetes and support heart health. The flexitarian diet is fruits, veggies, whole grains, plant-based protein, and that was tied for number 2, best of all. So Weight Watchers does well for most of the good diet plans. In fact, it was rated number 1. Jenny Craig did incredibly well. And the Noom, Noom, they spend a lot of money advertising, that diet tied for 2nd. Weight Watchers, incidentally, was number 1 for best weight loss. Go to health.usnews.com/best diet. Hopefully this will get you started on a good, healthy, happy New Year eating plan. And wait, I'm looking at the clock, and we are coming up to 3 o'clock. So all this information is available, too, on WABC all day long. And again, let me wish all of you a happy, healthy New Year.